Police Chief David Brown kind enough to join us. He and, of course, police officers, citizens across the country, around the world have been watching the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. Chief, you heard last night from some people in the community as you seek to build trust with the community. You and District Attorney Craig Watkins talking about his plans for a special unit to investigate police shootings, and you're on board with that idea.
Yeah, I've been in support of DA Watkins' plan to add another layer of oversight to what happens during an investigation of a police shooting. I think the public's trust and confidence can only be bolstered by more eyes looking at the circumstances that happen during those type of crises.
You've been careful not to be critical of what is going on in Ferguson, but you have made some observations about what's going on in Ferguson. I'm not going to ask you what they did wrong. I'm going to ask you what you would do differently.
And what we have done differently, I would suggest, Tim, is kind of what the commentary had been from our department and from me. I've written articles about it because every case is different when you don't know all the facts. But communication, Tim, is the key component. And you have to establish that line of communication long before you have these type of incidents in neighborhoods across the country, because it is already difficult to establish strong relationships with the community. During a crisis, it's almost impossible, as we're seeing it play out in Ferguson.
You had a situation that was hauntingly similar 2 years ago in South Dallas, Dixon Circle. You were on vacation at the time. You came off vacation to come down and try to address the problem in person. And it was an unarmed black teenager, a white police officer, and it was fairly quickly after that incident that almost exploded that you came out and said, this officer did the right thing.
Yes, and I was heralded by many officers inside the department. And then, Tim, if you continue that story, that narrative, almost a year later, a little over a year later, I had to fire 2 officers who I determined violated our deadly force policy, and later those officers were indicted. And so I'm not so popular with the officers internally. And so it's a mixed bag. You can't be seeking out popularity when you're making these tough decisions. You have to really study what's happened in the investigation and understand not just the long history of police-community relations, but you also have to understand that you have to base your decisions on facts and evidence and not on emotion. And we tried to convey to the community in our interactions, you can't fight the police because the police officers are fighting for their lives in a fight. And if they lose the fight, they lose their gun. If they lose their gun, they lose their life. On the other hand, when suspects surrender and give up, we can't shoot them. And you're going to be held accountable if you shoot unarmed, surrendered suspects. And you're going to be accountable in the criminal justice system along with your employment with law enforcement. And we've been firm on both sides of that, and we're seeking out other tools to help us with that.
And among those tools you're talking about, a couple of 100 body cameras that officers would wear in other departments. They're becoming known as the officer's best friend.
It is. It is the eyewitness, and it's not perfect as well, but it's better than what we're experiencing many times when it's just the officer and the suspect and we only have one version and witnesses have different versions, and you just have this conflict over what happened. The camera can be an additional neutral witness that can get to the truth.
And the only thing between us and that happening in DPD is money, and I know you're addressing that, Chief. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you.